Hello, everyone. Welcome to this panel session, Museums and NFTs, A Love Story. My name is Frances Liddle. I'm a lecturer in cultural practices at University of Manchester, and I also work with Iconic Moments, an NFT platform dedicated to cultural institutions. I'm also a researcher working at the intersection of museums and NFTs, and my PhD, which I completed early this year, was one of the first pieces of empirical research done on NFTs and museum practices. It is my great pleasure to present today this panel. Certainly, when I began my PhD in 2018, it felt like quite a lonely place. So speaking now in 2022 and with these experts here, most importantly, museums who are actually using NFTs is just incredibly exciting and just shows how far we have come and hopefully where we're going as well. So to introduce our panel, we have Diane Drube, who is the founder of We Are Museums, a community-powered think tank on the future of museums. She's also a visual artist and the head of arts and culture at TZ Connect, the Tezos hub in Berlin, where she facilitates collaboration and leads strategy around Web3 future prototyping across arts and culture. We have Tamar Clark-Brown, who is the arts and technologies curator at the Serpentine Galleries in the UK. Her work centres around alternative world-building practices with a specific focus on platforming marginalised voices. And in 2023, supported by Tezos, Art Technologies will launch an experimental video game led by the artist Gabriel Massan called Third World as part of the Altus World series. So very much looking forward to hearing more about that. We have Alfred Verdinger, who is the director of the Upper Austrian State Museums, including the Francisco Carolina Museum of Photography and Media Art and the OK Centre of Contemporary Art, as well as the DFC at the CryptoVoxels Metaverse. And his research focuses on classical modernism and contemporary photography, as well as media art. And lastly, we have Christina Leopold, who is the commercial director of Berlin's innovative art foundation, Light Art Space, which focuses on collaborations between art, science, and technology. She is also the founder of Artpreneur, a think tank dedicated to generating new possibilities at the intersection of art, tech, and business. She also co-founded the launch of Women in Tech, an online community that fosters networks between women working in the hybrid field of art and technology. So welcome all four of you. I thought today it would be worth thinking about this conversation first in kind of two parts. First, thinking about kind of what are the kind of principles driving museums and certainly what has kind of initiated this relationship. And then thinking about how this relationship is starting to be embedded or support our practices within museums and cultural institutions. So Diane, obviously, we had the pleasure of working together on the WAC Weeklies, or Web3 Arts and Culture Network. And with that, of course, we had this amazing opportunity to speak to so many different museum professionals. And from those conversations, and of course, with your work with TZ Connect, what do you feel are the principles that are driving conversations around museums and NFTs?
Good morning, everyone, first. So we actually started the program Web3 for the Art and Culture last year in December. It's a long program. It's actually a 9-month program that we are about to revive with a season 2. It's a program with different formats. We have Work Weekly, which is weekly conversations trying to explore how museums can use blockchain technology in different ways, but also trying to understand what are the main challenges, the main blockage, and the main opportunities. It's a beautiful space to actually explore, experiment, brainstorm, and network. And then we have this long fellowship, which is actually 8 weeks fellowship, where Light Art Space Foundation was part of the fellows, where we really explore further and we try to experiment with one use case. At the end of this fellowship, we had a huge hackathon where we actually provided some prizes for some teams to prototype new products. At the end of Aussie's first season, we had the pleasure to have one experiment being implemented in the current exhibition of Light Art Space Foundation with Yan Cheng in Berkheim-Halle in Berlin. But I will let Christina tell us more about it. But the main principle, I think, it's exploration, experimentation. It's really trying to understand what can be done. We are totally still at the beginning. Some people are saying that it's already the second or third or fourth generation of blockchain art. To my mind, we are still really, really much at the beginning, and we should not think that anything is set on the stone, in stone. It's really we really need still to invent new ways of using blockchain and exploration, experimentation, brainstorming, testing, implementing, and then failing and maybe learning. This process is really part of the journey that museums are currently leading. And for the first time, I've been working for 15 years with museums. For the first time, I actually believe museums are not late. I actually believe museums are really being innovative and really leading the way. We've seen already different things happening, good or bad, but that's actually not the point. The point is to experiment. The point is to dare, taking this technology and trying to do something.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I think this role of experimentation is so important, but also it feels slightly contradictory to talk about experimentation at museums. Certainly museums are well known for being quite slow and certainly very risk averse. Would you mind expanding a little bit more about kind of what have you found to be the kind of sticking points around this? What have museums been kind of I want to say almost scared of in terms of this role of experimentation with NFTs?
I think we should maybe ask museums directly about it.
Any thoughts from the panel?
I mean, nice to meet you all, nice to be on the panel with you all. My name's Tamar, as you've introduced us. I think, speaking from a Serpentine perspective, we have, we've just celebrated, we're a legacy institution, but we've just celebrated our 50th anniversary. But in a similar way, we're very much known for kind of like experimentation. What does it mean to be an institution that's very interdisciplinary, that's very experimental? It means that you have to kind of put, really focus on the role of like the public. What's public interest? What does evolution mean in that context? So I think for us, it's we've been embracing the space of blockchain for a number of years now. We are, as our digital team, or now our arts technologies team, our name has even changed. We have really, we began in kind of around 2014, and it was really this question of what does it mean to engage with digital strategy at a museum? What does it mean to engage with digital strategy, in a gallery space? And it's always kind of been a case of, leaning into that experimentation again, but again, like not being afraid to fail, really, working with artists that are critical of these technologies and working with artists that are not so involved in something as like a hype cycle, but really trying to take a sort of a long-term perspective on things from the beginning and saying, it's essential to be critical from the beginning and really, really workshop things in order to sort of reach somewhere that can be implemented on a longer term. So in a similar way, as we work, we often think about the things we do as prototypes. So the basis of the Arts Technologies team focuses on this kind of evolving R&D platform through which we're able to kind of, not only bring in certain projects and prototype through certain projects with blockchain, for example, but also, we do kind of allow that space to fail. We're really proud to be able to kind of build certain teams around each project we do as well, and to be able to kind of, network with people, build advisors, and bring different voices into the project and perspective from the beginning in order to really sort of take it apart and be like, what can happen?
Any other thoughts from the panel?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for having us here again. Nice being with you on a panel again. As you already mentioned, so LIS is an innovative art foundation bridging art, science, and tech. We primarily commission new works of art, which are often site-specific, so that's what we do. So exploring new technologies is just natural. It's that's what we want to do. This is part of our mission. That's what we do, or the artists we work with are doing already. So when I spoke to Diane probably a year ago, and you introduced the Web3 Fellowship to me, it was just the right moment. And I think not really knowing in the beginning where this would lead to and what an outcome can be. I think we involved, it was not just me, like a couple people from the team participated, and there were various ideas. And I think the NFT, I always had NFT ticket kind of in my mind. And we ended up in this amazing collaboration, which is, I think, very different from how we started. So it's a journey. It's a lot about exploring, about experimenting. Of course, you need like a team, an artist who is really curious and interested in exploring something new. And I want to say, with a tech partner like Tezos, it's been possible,
Yeah, which I think highlights a really important idea that actually we were just talking about before the panel. And that's the idea of collaboration, and how much actually I think museums need this concept. And I think all four of you can speak to this. How important do you see collaboration being in this kind of process of establishing this relationship between museums and NFTs and just Web3 more generally?
I mean, museums, they need help, they need collaborations. The problem is that usually I can't talk that often to my colleagues about those art NFTs or in general digital art, because no one is involved with, no one has any ideas about. So this is really the big problem what I have. I mean, in the world I'm coming from is the world of government and state museums. And I don't have any partners to talk about. I came from the Ukraine. I was in Kiev just a few days ago, and the first talk I had to a museum art director was the director from the Museum of Art in the Ukraine, and she did an NFT stamp, an art stamp, 2 years ago. So it's really amazing. And when I take a look, when I go back to Austria, so there's almost nothing until now. So that's a problem. But what I mean is, they need collaborations. We have collaborations, and then I guess it's growing. But we have to give them a chance. So it's digital art, and especially we as a museum. So we're holding a digital art collection. We are really taking care of it, and we also our collection is growing with art NFTs. So we have a quite nice collection in the meanwhile. I guess 200, 250 works, whatever. Of course, we have a special focus, but behind every purchase, behind every donation is a collaboration.
250 NFTs in your permanent collection. That's impressive.
It is. I was just going to add that I think from our side also collaboration is key. A lot of the way that in terms of the R&D platform, for example, a lot of the way that we've built is from appreciating and knowing the value of collaboration, the value of networks, the value of having other people around you to kind of support as you're researching and growing. So, for example, the first lab we had through our R&D platform was something called the Blockchain Lab, which is headed up by someone called Penny Rafferty and Ruth Catlow. They've just launched an incredible book called Radical Friends, which is really kind of a big primer on DAOs, actually. But through that, we've been able to see and really work with artists and thinkers and creatives and other museums, other galleries to really, see that if we are going to build out into this space, everything does need to be collaborative, needs to be interoperable. We recently about to publish our new version of a publication called Future Art Ecosystems. Every year, this will be the third one. Every year we publish a report called Future Art Ecosystems that it's kind of looking at what we need to build a new cultural infrastructure. The first one focused on, what does new cultural infrastructure look like? The second one was focused on art and the metaverse. The third one will be focused on hybrid worlds, coming out in November. But throughout all of this, there are kind of key vectors that we identified, I suppose, if we want to kind of keep building in this space and keep supporting artists, working with digital technologies, working with advanced technologies. You know, and one of the key things was interoperability, was building alongside each other and learning from each other's failures, from each other's growth, from each other's ideas. So, yeah, it's incredibly key for us, and we're increasingly trying to find ways to do that more, whether or not that's, you know, launching Discords with projects that we do and opening that out, or whether that's just having conversations or being in conversations like this, you know.
I'm really glad you brought up Ruth Catlow and Penny's book, actually, because I'm reading that at the moment. It's so good. And also, of course, like, you know, the way Serpentine was thinking about blockchains in collaboration with Further Field actually very much, you know, supported my thinking and my ideas for my PhD. And with that in mind, I think, you know, the fact that these galleries have been in the space for so long, how has your research in this area evolved and also extended to your practice?
Me again. I have to acknowledge the wider Serpentine team here. I think it's really important also that we, you know, equally, Tezos evolved, you know, designed to evolve, so are we. So we have been growing, and the people that are leading, you know, are my wider team: Victoria Ivanova, Ava Yeager, Alex Boyce, Roisin McVeigh, Kay Watson, and was Ben Vickers, who kind of started the arts tech team. But all of these people are, you know, incredible researchers in the space as well, leading different parts of the program. In terms of blockchain and NFTs itself, so currently I'm leading on a project called Artist Worlds. Third World is going to be a video game that is supported and powered by Tezos, the Web3 strategy part of it. And through this, I think we're really, and myself included, are very proud to be very artist-led. So, you know, we're looking for the next phase of the project, and it was, you know, Artist Worlds itself is really focused on ideas of world building, technology and world building. Found an incredible artist called Gabriel Massan, Brazilian artist, Berlin-based, who had been in the NFT space for a little while, experimented with it, and was really keen to sort of answer new questions with it. Similarly to us, like, what are the civic potentials of NFTs, for example? How can we use NFTs to expand and kind of help build a different kind of creative ecosystem, or like a different, you know, help to support a new creative infrastructure? So through that, we've really been kind of, experimenting. We're in it at the moment. We're very much workshopping at the moment. But it's really looking at how we can also, you know, potentially through this game, help to support NFTs. What can we do to, for example, in terms of supporting certain, so take the value that they put into the game, and use it to kind of, you know, build their own worlds also.
That's really interesting, and I think actually relates really nicely to what LAS is doing as well. And Christina, I wonder if you wouldn't mind just expanding a little bit about kind of your latest exhibition and your work with Tezos as an institution.
Definitely. Okay, yeah, this works better. So the exhibition Ian Cheng, Life After Bob, is on right now until November 6th. So for everyone who didn't have a chance yet to see the exhibition, please come and experience the exhibition, but also the NFT experience, which is really an integral part of it. The exhibition is a commission by LS. It's basically a cinematic experience, a 50-minute long narrative film that we translated into an exhibition. So basically, the world of the film, we tried to make this experienceable for the audience. And this project, so one of the curators, Liz, is here in the audience, probably a lot better in explaining the exhibition in detail than me. But this is a project we've been planning for a very long time. And once we started thinking about NFTs as part of, or mainly as part of, like, the fellowship, I think we involved the artist studio and of course the Tezos team to come up with an idea, you know. So, and basically the artists developed an idea on how to integrate NFT technology, making this an experience, basically adding an experience to the exhibition, which is really a journey for the visitor, And then conversation started with Tezos on how can we implement this from a technical perspective. So basically, it's everyone who visits the exhibition has the opportunity to live mint an NFT. It does a lot more though. It's really basically the first, when you enter the exhibition, it's what you are being confronted with first, because it's nicely, and I think visually really nicely done. It's very special. The visitor is asked to give a nickname and a birth date, and an algorithm developed by the artist studio will then generate a prompt, a very individual prompt. So every visitor gets like a wristband with a QR code. Basically, this is a guidance, a kind of a psychological guidance through the exhibition. Then, after having experienced the exhibition and seen the film, the visitor has an opportunity. The visitor is guided into a room with a big screen, and it's like similar to an airport screen, like the name, the nickname, as well as the prompt will show up, and this then can be minted into an NFT. So it's like very personal, very intimate, and every visitor is for free, obviously, can mint an NFT and take it home. I think it's a really nice, it's really part of the exhibition, but it's also a memory, and this is what I think we're still going to talk about this a bit later, like the observations we did when speaking to visitors, asking them how did they like the experience, what did they take away, what are they planning on doing with the NFT, did they really learn anything? So this is like, we've done some surveys, but I'm of course curious to talk with you about this as well. So it's like a memory. Basically, people can take home a memory, a very personal memory of the exhibition.
And if I may, what is also really interesting is that it's live generative art made by the algorithm, made by the artist, and it's live minted. And I was checking the numbers this morning, and we have around 25% of visitors doing the journey until the end and receiving the NFT on their wallet. It might be quite complicated when you talk about it right now, just like opening the wallet, then having the wristband, and then receiving the NFT. But it's so integrated within the visitor journey that it's really truly part of the experience. And people are really having fun. You really see people waiting for the name and then taking a picture of the name and the prompt and then putting it on Instagram or so. It's creating this really nice moment always within the museum space where visitors are sharing, what is yours? Have you already minted? Why is it not working? Can I help? It is creating this moment of conviviality. Which is not often the case when you visit a museum. And I saw some people starting to talk with each other. It is, creating really nice moment, really nice shared moment and memory, I think.
I think that just to add to that, I think there's definitely, it feels like it's going to counteract that kind of, often when you go into a gallery space and people are not sure, they're kind of looking at each other for how they should navigate something, and there is that like, I don't know, discomfort maybe. And I think a lot of the way that I still need to visit. I've heard a lot about it, seen a lot of videos, but I'm really excited about the way that this can, prompt a different kind of engagement with art and different kind of engagement with each other, different kind of engagement with the stories and the content of the art as well. We talk about a lot about this, something called the UX of art, which is something we're kind of trying to champion and lead, and really this is exactly what we're talking about when we say that. What's the user experience? What is the audience experience? How is it changing? How are expectations changing? How are possibilities of opening up access to conversations to experiences changing? And I think similarly with Third World, we're really excited about thinking into this space of memory. What can you do with something that's personal that you take away? How can that be a transformative moment, not only for yourself, but also kind of thinking about future economies and, creator economies and things like this. So I'm really excited to also, the game will also have a live activation at Serpentine in February, and we're really excited to also learn from what you've done and talk to you as well and see what we can do as well.
And I think that's the thing, is that with NFTs, when we're thinking about how can they be implemented in museums, it's perhaps not thinking them as things in themselves, but actually how they can be an extender or mediator of the messages or ideas that we like to translate in our collections or our exhibitions. Alfred, I'd love to turn to you now, because your work within kind of metaverses and online exhibitions, I think it adds a kind of interesting kind of parallel to this conversation. Would you mind just expanding a little bit about your work with some of your metaverse exhibitions?
Yeah. Also, at the moment we have 3 exhibitions on art NFTs. 2 in our museums and 1 in our metaverse at CryptoVoxels. So we, let's say almost 2 years ago, we started with our first art NFT exhibition. It's was Proof of Art. Jesse Damiani was the curator, and which got really huge success, and the catalog became a kind of Bible, as we were early birds. And at the same time we started at the Metaverse CryptoVoxels, our space DFC, which is called Digital Francisco Carolinum, which is one of our museums from the 19th century, where we're having right now the Metaspace exhibition, which is about the history of the Metaspace, Metaverse. And what we realize is that we really have to explain what we're doing. This was also the reason at the beginning why we are doing an exhibition of, why we did an exhibition like Proof of Art, because we realized that the audience had no idea about art NFTs, even no idea about blockchain, and the same happens also on the artist side. So we had very few artists who had knowledge. In the meanwhile, it's becoming better and better and better, I have to say. And I really like this, the project what you did, and it's exactly the way what you have to do. So we have to explain what we're doing. We have to explain in an easy way to what is NFT, what is blockchain. And I really love this the project what Tezos is doing, because I went yesterday at very little time, as I went to the Paris Plus, and I saw the Tezos booth, and it took me 30 seconds to get the wallet and to get an NFT as a present. And I've got this badge. So it was really super nice. This is exactly the way. So, and your exhibition, what you are doing, it's explaining what's happened in a very easy way. And also our exhibition, which is at the OK at the moment, we're doing the same. We have an artist group, Crypto Wieners. So they were the first artists in Austria who tokenized digital art in 2018. And they did, we brought their digital world into reality. So we built the whole stuff in real. And this is really an amazing exhibition. As it's a kind of it's his own metaverse. When you enter the space, you really have to settle, because you don't feel that you're in the real world. So you really feel you're in a metaverse, in a digital world. But it's analog, it's there. Even the table, even the piano, even Mozart is there, you know. And you really can feel their presence, their virtual, their digital presence. And it's so nice. And then we also felt, so what can we do? So the visitors, they go through the exhibition, and at the end, they've got the wallet, and they've got an NFT as a present. But many people are really worrying about this, even worrying about entering a metaverse somehow. So we felt, let's do it also in paper. So if you are worried about, if you don't like your mobile phone, whatever, then you also can get a piece of paper, and you can go through the exhibition, and at the end you have a wallet on paper, and also an artwork on paper, just to explain what the digital world can do for you. And this works out also very well, I have to say. It's a wonderful exhibition. And the other one, which is also a kind of, when we did the Proof of Art, so we realized we have to do more of this, more explain what's happened, especially what's happened with the metaverse. And then we felt, because the metaverse is, many people, they're really worrying about this. They really are, they're angry about it. I've got a lot of emails or letters you can't imagine. And then we felt, okay, we also have to explain it on a very low level. Just what is it? And then I always start a discussion like this. Because the metaverse is very human. It's very human. Because our first dream, what we have as a little child, is it's a trip in the metaverse. It's a trip in a parallel world. And so this is the way why we are explaining also the metaverse, the history of the metaverse. And also this is the reason why we have medieval art in this exhibition. And we are really we are just spinning a bridge, building a bridge from the Greek antique world into contemporary. And this works out very well, I have to say. And the people are really taking this exhibition very well. And this is what we really have to take care of it. We have to be careful with the people who are visiting our exhibitions, and we have to explain them very carefully. We have to think before in advance what we do. It's very important.
Yeah, definitely. And I love how you're, again, being a kind of mediator between the two spaces and providing that kind of educational aspect as well. And also you spoke there briefly of kind of audiences, and I think this has become kind of one of the core ideas when we're thinking about Web3 generally. Do you think, and this is to all of you, that since the kind of hype around NFTs of 2021 and this kind of evolving relationship, do you think audiences are becoming more accepting of NFTs or more critical of NFTs?
Maybe I'd like to quickly go back to what Tamar said, and of course Alfred as well. It's about the experience, you know. So user experience is so crucial, and I think this is what we are observing in the exhibition, and we are constantly reviewing. So we have an amazing visitor service team. I mean, we have, of course, the LS team. We have support from TC Connect team being on site and really explaining what is happening, but it is something, exactly, you stand there, you do it yourself, you experience it yourself. I think this really breaks down barriers when it comes to getting in touch with a new technology. You know, your experience, it's easy in a way. You suddenly have your wallet. I don't know if we manage in 30 seconds, but hopefully it's like a couple minutes or something until the NFT is really there. So I just wanted to stress again, I think the experience, in order to, if you really want to get people excited about a new technology and explore, experiment, being open to something, the user experience needs to be key, and technology needs to work in that case. You know, you don't want frustration or people to wait for, or, you know, then I think it's a fine line, you know, so I think it's, just as an addition.
I'd just say we will find out in February, but I think definitely there's a lot of onboarding that needs to happen, and I guess I suppose the moment where that becomes more seamless, like that is also when you get less resistance, I suppose, to things, but you're doing incredible work to kind of be the person, you know, be a space that's testing this. You also, in terms of like making that material, I suppose, or like doing the sort of paper route as well, and really acknowledging the different types of audiences that want to, you know, are available to get involved in this space, and, you know, acknowledging the fact that, you know, not everyone, people need to start from different spaces to be kind of onboarded into this space. I think for us, maybe a lot of it is doing things like, I don't know, we recently, well, this time last year now, launched a Twitch space. So we're trying to do a lot more sort of opening up for back-end conversations and providing a space for people to kind of chuck us, you know, I suppose break down that barrier between official conversations around things and really lean into spaces that people are, you know, actively getting involved and asking like honest, you know, questions from every perspective. So I think we've got a lot of learning to do in terms of what will happen in this February moment. And we do really want to learn from other spaces like LAS, for example, like the work that Diane's doing, like the work that Alpha's doing, in terms of just, you know, really exploring what can happen and how much more innate we can make this experience and how much more we can keep onboarding people in a seamless way.
And I have to say the fellowship was actually with 8 institutions. We were talking now about Light Art Space Foundation, but we are still doing other projects, other experimentation with other institutions. And the fellowship, the Work Weekly, so the first part of this big program, will start again on the 3rd of November, and then the fellowship, and then we will open the call for applications. And then the fellowship will start in February or January next year. I'm just saying that every week we are actually identifying new ways to use the blockchain, and we are really exploring on a daily basis. So what you do in your lab, it's also what you do, it's also what you do. Like, I feel that we are all at this table exploring on a daily basis. It's becoming our routine. And this should be key because we are still there, still in this explorative stage.
And before I hand over to the audience for any questions, my final question to all of you would be, we've spoken a little bit about where we are right now, but where would you like this relationship to go? And certainly thinking about, museum professionals watching you right now and listening to you, what would you say to them to help them start their journey into this space?
I want to say just do it, because that was that was something I recall the conversations we had. I was just like, okay, there's a lot of theory. I mean, it's very complex, It's like, I think there are many ideas and ideas that are where you don't know if it's really going to work out, So it stays an experiment until it's really there. But I'm really glad we just did it, and I'm sure it wasn't the fastest and the most straightforward way. It probably went back and forth, so something.
It's part of the journey.
But we got there. It's part of the journey, and I think everyone, all stakeholders, everyone who participated in this would say, yes, it worked out, and the feedback we receive from the audience is very positive, and yeah.
But we need collaborations. This is very important. This is what I feel, because as in the museums world, I can't get more acceptance from a broader audience than from museum staff, museum professionals, because they're still not they're dealing with digital art, what they say, but they're not dealing with tokenized digital art, and they're really worried about. And what I understood is, I'm able to explain Impressionism within 5 minutes, I would say. To explain the blockchain, it's a challenge for some people. It's still a challenge, but it's changing what I see. So what we need, we're really doing a lot of exhibitions of in this art NFT world, or tokenized digital art, or digital art. There are always 2-3 exhibitions at once, and but we need, and really behind every exhibition are collaborations, also with the kind of society that we are built, and this is really a need. We have to work on collaborations, and then this is what I hope in the future, maybe in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we also can do a talk like this one with museum professionals.
I would say really embracing, again, audience as stakeholders, as much as each other, as much as other museums, as much as other galleries. Also acknowledging the fact that, for example, when I say that we do everything as a prototype, we're thinking of the game, for example, as a prototype. We're hoping that, if it is this beta game, what happens if we then collaborate with another institution and, we hand it over in a certain way and say, this is what we've done, this is what our learnings are, how can we continue to develop for the next round, how can we continue to implicate these learnings into the continual development, not only of the artwork, but also of the ecosystem, also of the other people, the players, the stakeholders in that space also.
I think I said it all. Exploration.
We have about 5-6 minutes left. Are there any questions from the audience?
Hi. I was just listening also to what has just been said regarding to the notion of game, if I heard properly. And right now, what are people more, I would say, reactive to? If you have like kind of like immersive experience, like has been done with the Fortnite project, or the fact, so the experience, or the fact that you have artworks which are tokenized, which means also the value. What is what people understand, you know, first, and is actually maybe the first step also to help them to onboard them. Because what I have the feel is like whenever you explain what NFTs are, etc., people are still not understanding the notion of value of that you're bringing in the digital space. And actually it's really this is the core question. And there are a lot discussing about the content, but it's not the content because we had digital art before. So it's like what this notion of value also enables then. And so I was thinking, what is actually, when you see the reactions of people, what is the most easy for them to help them get into, you know, that direction? The game like Fortnite, the notion of like how you display them, are the more sensitive to that before really understanding what the notion of blockchain means. Voilà.
Is that so? Do people understand the value?
Yes. What is it that actually you see as kind of like triggers, you know, to get people on board into Web3 and really understand the whole point, I would say.
I mean, I think honestly, there's been like I think things don't happen in silos, I suppose, in which, I mean, there is, of course, like a value to there being, you know, a very big visible platform like Fortnite, for example, getting involved in a certain conversation. But it also takes a lot of people, you know, having that critique of certain moments to sort of say this is what is really happening. This is what is really happening. So I don't know if you can kind of separate like a big moment with the smaller ones. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I think it's about having those one-on-one conversations as well as much as anything. So if there are big moments that bring attention to something, but as soon as something happens, people are going to be critical of it, I suppose, because the conversation isn't being communicated in the right way. I think you do need that healthy, like, critical feedback of any project in order to get the discuss and share what the true value is.
And when you display NFTs in all projects, is it like a way to make them discover digital art? Or is it like really the blockchain, you know, what the blockchain enables, which starts to be an exciting perspective, I would say, for people? Or is it just actually the content? Because, so my feel now, even if we speak with people who are in museums, people are discussing a lot about content instead of like infrastructure, and and somehow the notion of tokenization, the core of it is the notion of infrastructure. As I was saying, the fact that you can like have a unicity, rarity, etc. So maybe for museums who wants to also to take part to it and more people to be onboarded, I think it's this kind of like education that should be like done first. And right now, I think people are a lot debating like, is it art or not? That's not the question at all, because you could ask the same question for any painting, I would say. So I don't know if there's a kind of like a work that is being doing also on educating about this notion, I would say, itself.
Yeah. Maybe I can quickly say something to that. I think this is exactly what we are trying to do with the experience we offer. We do have, in addition to the guides who really answer questions and explain in detail what is happening, we do have a extensive wall text also explaining everything. So you have you do, or we hope the audience has an opportunity to really understand and maybe even question technology behind. So it can be, I guess, on a very general level, but if you're really interested, you'll find a guide who's able to explain even in more detail. So the educational approach is definitely, for us, I would say, one of central. It's a key for us. It's also communicating or trying to translating this complex technology to the audience.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to add that we haven't shown anything in that sense yet, so it's hard for me to answer that question in that way. But I'd say similarly in terms of sharing some of the back end, the research that we do, taking a look at things like our legal lab, for example, have done amazing Twitch sessions where we have a legal lab headed up by someone called Alana Kushner, who is looking, for example, the legal implications of NFTs for artists. And we've created, these Twitch sessions as resources for artists. So we're thinking a lot about the different ways we can kind of share the work and the sort of angles that we're coming at it from in the lead up to launching like a sort of more visual commission that does it through artist work.
I was going to say as well, I do wonder, what I took from your question as well is, I suppose, the idea of are we focusing too much on the infrastructure? Do people need to know what a blockchain does and how it works in order to own an NFT in the first place? And certainly I think what the projects that we've spoken about, all of them here today, provide so much more than just it being like an NFT. The NFT really is just like a tool or just a way to reimagine the experience as opposed to anything in particular. And I think that will be the thing that people will find valuable, not necessarily trying to get them to understand that it's a certificate of ownership or authenticity or it's decentralized and so on and so forth. I think we've probably run out of time unless there's one quick question at all. No, well, I'd just like to thank our panelists very much for this conversation, and thank you all for coming to listen.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Good morning. I hope you can hear me. I'm Julie Walsh, and I'm an independent curator from Chicago, and I will be moderating our panel today with my two distinguished guests. I'm very excited to be here, and thank you, Tezos, for helping us to, inviting us to be in this panel. Before I introduce my guests, I thought I would give everybody a little morning exercise because our topic is immersive experiences and experiential art. So first I have to show you that when you unroll a scroll, don't do it this way, you would do it this way, sideways. So what I'm gonna ask everybody to do is close your eyes for a minute, take a little rest, and I'm gonna put you back in time in history, in ancient China. And I'm going to, so if everybody will just close your eyes, take a little break, and what you can imagine is you are unrolling a scroll painting. And as you do this, you will see a place that makes you very happy, some place that gives you calm and peace, and is a very, very special, beautiful place to you. And then just keep it in your mind for a moment. And when you're ready, you may return to us and open your eyes. So, this was my little introduction to you about the power of immersive art. And this goes back way in ancient history. And in ancient China, the emperors believed that everybody in his court should have their own personal scroll painting. And if you were feeling stressed out, instead of watching Netflix, you would unroll your scroll painting and you would be immediately transported into the landscape, into this place of beauty, into a place that gave you peace and calm. And so the ancient Chinese people really believed in this power of art. And it goes back to cave paintings, also, of course, ancient cave paintings. We have contemporary references of the Dada movement and Fluxus, all talking about the power of experiential art. And I would just continue introducing myself, and then I will introduce our panelists, and then we'll get right into our questions today. So I have been in the art world for 40 years. I've worked as a gallery owner, a curator, and been an artist. I'm also an art advisor to a Paris-based company, Art Consortium, which helps cultural institutions, galleries, foundations, and festivals integrate Web3 technologies. I am joined by my wonderful guests, Carlotta Docau and Roy Ahmet. Carlotta is a director at Superblue with 10 years of experience in the contemporary art world. She has worked at Superblue as the company's first employee since its inception with Pace Gallery, building the project from an idea to a full-scale business with over 50 employees. I should also tell you, if you haven't been to Superblue, it's about 50,000 square feet. Her role at Superblue has primarily consisted of artist management, initiating and consolidating partnerships for the company, as well as leading on the company's Web3 strategy. And Carlotta holds an MA in International Business from the University of Edinburgh and an MA in the History of Art from the Courtauld Institute of Art. And Roy Ahmet is the General Manager of the Grand Palais Immersif, Réunion des Musées Nationaux Grand Palais Group, and he's also in charge of both the production and the distribution of digital exhibitions. He's also an expert in digital innovation, and he has a PhD in social sciences. Thank you so much for both being here today. So I think what I'd like to start our topic about is about immersive art. So is immersive a physical description, meaning you can't see anything else but the experience? Or is it a matter of concentrating, meaning the presentation is so compelling that you forget you are not actually there? And I think to dive deeper into the topic, we should really just try to come up with what is a working definition of what immersive art means to both of you in the context of your institutions.
Do you want me to
Sure,
start?
go first.
Okay, thanks. Good morning, everyone. Immersive art, of course, it's like a head definition for different types of practices and different type of experience. What I would like to retain from it is kind of a very general way of describing what we are doing, and we can say it's an all-surround sense experience. And as you said, Julie, this also all-surround sense experience go way back in history. You were speaking about prehistorical caves with ornaments like Chauvet, which is a great example for this type of experience. Cathedrals, museums are also kind of an all-around surround sense experience. What perhaps make the difference or the new element is the media, and how media is integrated into space, and the relation between the media and the space in this very broad definition of all surround sense experience. And even in this sense, we have quite an history of media in space, like the first movies or the first projection are kind of putting media in space and the audience in this space at the same time. And we have also this kind of history of this relation. What makes it newer, like the last years perhaps, that this media in space is not just frontal, as we used to, like movies, TVs, screens, and it's not just a frontal relation between us, public, and the media. The media are distributed in the space in an itself all surround setting, and perhaps this is like the new part of the immersive experience. Having said that, putting perhaps the visitor in the center, we can see that with technology, this experience is not just in physical space. The space itself can be an all-media one if we put a VR on our head. So why I'm saying all this is just to put our experience on kind of an historical chronology, to say that, of course, we are inventing and innovating all the time, but it's always already in history. And I think it's important because it gives us keys to understand, perhaps, and define better what we are doing today. So just to be more precise, if you had the chance to visit, for example, our newly opened exhibition in Paris at Place de la Bastille, we propose an experience, which is an all-surround experience of media in space. It's a specific one. There's a lot of other types of putting media in space. But this one that we've created is an example where visitors can explore space, content, creation, embedded in space with media inside. The topic is Venice Revealed, and perhaps we will speak about it later.
Yeah, I actually encourage everybody to go see it. I found it very mesmerizing. But Roy, I'm wondering if you wanted to be a bit more specific about the types of digital technology that you are using actually in that in that exhibition, because I think that may be interesting to people.
So, like, technology is what makes this experience new in the sense, because, yeah, as we said, like, painting and pigments existed already. Pixels also existed for a while. But what is new perhaps today and challenging is this kind of, I would say, maturity or robustness of some type of media elements that permit to have offers for large audience. And for example, in this type of exhibition, our point and our choice was to articulate different type of experience of media. So there is this huge video projection, what we might call wall, surround, and video mapping of the space. So this is one experience, accompanied with sound, music. In our case, we choose to compose, to curate, and to create an original soundtrack, which is the sound very important for the experience. In the future, also an olfactive experience. So this is one of the experience. Another type of experience is the narration part, which for us is very important because it's a way to share knowledge and information. It's not just about the emotion that creates by large images and sound. It's also about what we are trying to tell and share. And so this is another type of experience. And another one is the interaction part, where audience is invited to interact with several type of screen and interface in order to explore each one by itself the different type of content. So the combination, the articulation of this type of experience create a visiting experience which is composed.
Okay, so to summarize, because I've seen the exhibition, and again, you should all go see it, there are these huge, enormous, scaled, software-based immersive projections at all kinds of angles. There's also some installations. There's the Assassin's Creed interactive game component. It's very, very multifaceted, and it really covers a lot of different types of technology. Carlotta, would you like to respond? How do you see immersive art as it relates to your institution?
Yes, so at Superblue, we, let's say, represent a roster of artists that are innovating in the experiential art field. And actually, when we were building the company and we were trying to find a catch-all phrase to define all these different types of art, and it was very difficult, to be honest, because the word immersive is kind of overused in both the art world, but also in marketing and other industries. And so for us, really, it was about pushing boundaries and opening it up, opening the definition up to any type of artistic experience that not only, I guess what you were saying earlier about putting the visitor or the audience at the center of it. We have a phrase that we tend to use a lot, which is created by artists, completed by you. So for us, it's very much about how can you move beyond just being a passive observer of art and becoming an active participant of the artwork. Of course, with new media, we've had a lot of innovation in this field, and it's opened up the possibilities for artists to really create things that we could have never even imagined a few years ago. At Superblue, we tried to really move beyond just the digital. So a lot of our artists work with all types of media, including natural things found in nature, such as water, mist. One famous example is the Rain Room by Random International. It's essentially a room that you walk in, and it's this heavy downpour, and you you smell, the air of, as if you were in a rainforest almost. And as you're walking through this rainy room, you don't get wet because there are sensors that, and so you're essentially surrounded by rain without actually getting wet. And so that, for us, is an immersive experience that doesn't necessarily obviously uses technology, but not necessarily uses digital technology. But of course, we also do a lot of projection mapping, which really fully immerses you within a space. And I guess it really depends on the artist. Some artists try to use all the senses or try to incite all the senses. Some artists are more about the visual experience. But we're really at Superbooth trying to not only push the boundaries of what immersive art can be, but also of who can be an artist. So we work with all types of artists from different backgrounds, scientists, architects, engineers, stage designers. We really want to move away from this idea of the formal artist and really open up that definition. So it's really difficult to actually define what immersive art is, but I think saying that it does, maybe it's just saying that there is no definition is the best way forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the thing is that traditionally in the art world, it could mean, VR art, for example. It could mean software-based immersive projections. It could also be a presentation format where, it's web-based VR. Is also an immersive experience. So that's why I thought it was interesting for us to kind of be more specific about what it is we're talking about, because the word is so overused in the art world. And I think for both of you, you're doing very different things. So it's nice for people to hear about that. What makes your shows more immersive than what an audience could get from any other media that visitors could encounter elsewhere, specifically widescreen film or a VR and a stereo headset or interactive computer games? And I know that both of you are actually interested in integrating these technologies as well.
Yeah, what media permits us to do today, and this is really because technology is getting better and easier to use, and sometimes also less expensive, if not say cheaper, but it permits to use the space, whether it's a physical space or a virtual space, in a way that attract the attention and create an experience which is not the one we are used to in day-to-day moments. And to take those examples that we are doing is to create a space which is an exhibition space. People have a kind of imagine when they are going into an exhibition space, they know more or less what they are about to do, and we try to create a surprise in the way we are using the elements. Again, not in our perspective, not for the sake of surprise or the sake of innovation, but for the sake of presenting the content in the best way that it could meet the public. And it's really about the content, about the creation, about what we are trying to share with the public. So the Venice Revealed, for example, we are using a 3D photogrammical model of the Venice city that we've created, we produced, and we are presenting this model in different ways, in some very large-scale projection, but also on tactile screens, in order to create new ways to expose what we are trying to share with the public, the history of the city, its stakes, the fact that it's an architecture miracle, the stakes of today, global warming, mass tourism. So all these stories that we want to share with this, in particular, an original and unseen ways to modelize the city. This exhibition I found particularly interesting in the sense that the visual elements that we are using are, of course, documenting the city, the place, but they also have their own aesthetics. And the way we explore and present it, it's not just about a documentation, which is very important for us, but it's also a way to create new imaginary of, in this case, of Venice. And when you see the point clouds images and aesthetics, you are confronted with another type of sensorial experience. And this is one of the particularity of what we are doing, is to articulate documentation and creation.
So Carlotta, I would really like you to talk a little bit about your opening show at Superblue, because I think it will be an interesting contrast too.
Yeah, it's contrast. I mean, I think in both cases we're trying to, or the artists rather, are trying to convey a message, convey a message in a different way. So it might be for educational purposes, but it can also be for just to receive some sort of emotional response that is different to maybe reading a text or analyzing data. And so I think it's worth actually talking about our opening show at in Miami. We have a permanent space called Superblue, and particularly there's one artwork there by S. Devlin, one of our artists in our roster, and the whole goal of the artwork was really to help the audience understand how similar we are to trees. And in that way, hopefully, encouraging people to either make a donation to reforestation or rewilding initiatives, or even just understanding how close we are with nature. And so for her, it was all about using immersive and experiential technology and art form to really convey that message. And so the whole installation revolves around this idea that our lungs and the trees are very similar, both physically but also in terms of material and everything. And so when you walk through this experience, it has a video component, it has a mirror maze component, which is beautiful, and then there's a final component that puts a tree on top of your own self, so you're able to kind of really visually see all of these messages that she's trying to convey. And that really was it's not really education in a formal sense. It was more about triggering some sort of emotional response. And I think with many of the artists that we work with, they have a lot of messages and themes and causes that they want to push for, but they're trying to do it in a different way. And this technology really allows them to innovate in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the powers of immersive and experiential art, is that we can create empathy. And I was in a panel last night, I was talking about the importance of, somebody was saying, well, how can you tell what's good NFT art? And I said, I use the same criteria that I've used for many years, which is it addressing a social, political, cultural, historical event, and formal concerns of color and things like that. And really, in immersive technology, we have this incredible opportunity to get people to put themselves in history.
I think I would like to add, just because immersion can mean so many things. Another example is another one of our artists, actually Paris-based JR, and he creates these experiential moments, but they're not, in a black box space or within the constraints, let's say, of a building. He has a project called the Inside Out Project, where anyone can participate by printing their portrait and pasting it in the walls of the cities. And he's done countless of activations. In fact, it's actually spreading beyond just what the studio is doing. And I see that as a form of experiential art, because everyone comes together. It's a community building process, and everyone comes together for a cause, and they all believe in this cause, and therefore they're putting their face just to demonstrate that they are there. And I think that's another form of immersion that goes well beyond, it's just paper and glue, really. He always talks about how, you don't really need necessarily digital technology to do it, but if you have a strong message and a strong cause, you can really create something with very little as well.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to keep in mind also is the possibilities of creating community with these artistic experiences as well. Let's discuss a little bit about the role of interaction. What role do you think interaction has in immersive art, and do you think interaction is actually necessary to create an immersive experience?
Yeah, you can do the same exercise about the concept of interaction as the concept of immersion, right? What is really interaction? What we are defining when we are speaking about interaction? Being in space, walking, is an interaction, right? So we are already engaged in interaction in the world, and when we are confronting an artwork in space, we are interacting. Of course, there are different degrees, and we can define it differently. What we are trying to do is to propose for different type of publics, different type of engagement. And the engagement can be very simple, just, choosing what we want to see in a particular moment. When we go beyond it, and actually deciding and trying to play with what we are proposing. And so this different type of interaction, which will be like very, very simple, for more complex one, create engagement, because our attention, the attention of the public, is differentiate when we are doing so. And it also speaks or appeal in a different way for different type of public. And I think for us, which are creating collective experience, but when you are opening your doors, you're waiting to several people at the same time. Most of them are a stranger one to another, and coming from, everyone from his or her own background. We're trying to create experience which at the same time are uniform, because we are at the same time at the same place having more or less the same experience, but at the same time also differentiate an individual, and the interaction help to do so.
Carlotta?
Yeah, I would go as far as saying it's at the core. I think interaction, participation is essential for this type of art to be successful. We definitely try to push for that, and actually kind of weaves nicely into this what we were talking about earlier about blockchain technologies and how they can form part of this type of art. I think because of participation and interaction, by nature, it's ephemeral, right? And so you have to be in the moment, and your experience is going to be unique to you and how you react to the artwork and how you participate with it, and everybody else is going to have that unique experience. And so because of those the ephemeral nature of this type of experience, there are ways in which you can immortalize those moments, and that's where maybe blockchain technology can be embedded into this type of art form, because there's on one end you had to be there. There's that sense that you had to be there, but on another end you kind of want to keep a souvenir in the long term for that. So yeah, it's crucial, I think.
I think I have one more question about immersive art, and then we're going to move on to blockchain. In your first year, what has been your experience with the audience's attitude toward this art form?
Well, I'll just reply quickly. I mean, we were created as a response to a desire from the audience to see more of this art form. So Superblue used to be part of Pace Gallery, and at its inception, it was a completely different idea. But in response to what our artists and our audiences were desiring, were wanting to see more of, we created, and it culminated in launching a semi-permanent space in Miami called Superblue, as I was saying. And of course, it's been a very successful first year because there is a huge appetite, especially post-pandemic. People are coming out and they want to see, feel, experience things differently. So it's been really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say that because I really feel like during the pandemic years, it has really pushed audiences to want to be in person and to want to be mesmerized and awed by art again.
Yeah, and it's about the specific content or creation that we are creating that the public act and react differently. Several years ago, before the pandemic, we've proposed a huge immersive installation of Wim Wenders at the Grand Palais. It was called Emotion, and what was amazing about the public just danced, in the space because it went very well with some of the images and with the sound. So when you have 3,000 people, while half of them are dancing with this, it's an experience. Other type of what I think is interesting is to observe how we corporally, bodily behave in this type of spaces, and public reacts differently when we are showing like images and sound which are more subtle, more impressive and mesmerizing, as you say. Like people are settled, just kind of hypnotized around. But when we are just putting the beat a bit, push it a bit, and showing some other types of images, like people are behaving physically differently, and I think it's very interesting to observe.
Thank you. So where do you imagine in a utopian art world blockchain could fit in years from now as it relates to immersive art?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this, and I think that there is, when we think about blockchain or NFTs, we tend to just think of tokenized digital art, but I think there's so much more. There's a huge potential for this technology to really help support projects like Superblue, in the sense that when you're thinking about blockchain technology, you can really think of it as a way of creating community around something, either an artist, it could be an artwork, it could be really anything. And so in a project like Superblue, or when you're talking about experiential art, one thing, and I'm sure it's the same for you, is that it's very costly. These technologies cost a lot of money, and so a lot of infrastructure is required, et cetera. And so with blockchain technology, there are mechanisms in a utopian world where you could create a sense of co-ownership between in a form of crowdfunding, of a much larger group of people that are all pulling in together to create these immersive experiences. And it can take so many different forms. So as a form of building audience, it's an incredible technology, as a way of also tapping into new audiences that maybe are not interested in contemporary art, but maybe are interested in tech, and understanding that there's actually way more synergy, and there's a big hybrid between the two worlds. That's very important as well. And yeah, it's really about thinking about how we can create a sense of community, a sense of coming together, and finally, as I was saying earlier about this idea of ephemeral moments, immortalizing those ephemeral moments. When you're in an experiential artwork and you're in the moment, sometimes you want to keep or take something with you, and by definition, many of these experiences are digital, and so there's a lot of room for blockchain technology to support both artists and audiences.
Yeah, I think what is perhaps groundbreaking with the blockchain and NFT technology, it permits to get the individual or the personal relation in what is collective experience. And I think what we are doing anywhere, every time and anywhere else, and this new ways to experience individuality, personality, something which is unique in digital art, digital space, digital environment, this is the groundbreaking outcome of this technology. And I think it will certainly help and find ways to articulate this relation, which is so important, and that we are doing for all the time, that how we relate individual, personal, into the collective and more general experience. And for this reason, I think it's very important to experiment, because, of course, today we are on the edge of what it might done, what we might do with it. But when we take it from this perspective, I think it will be very, very fruitful.
Yeah, and I can definitely see going forward, like for emerging digital artists who are interested in immersive technologies, looking to places like Tezos, looking to places like TZ Connect for support to figure out how to do this with their great ideas. Carlotte, I have a few quick questions, and then we're going to open it up to all of you for questions. How do you see blockchain-based art or the blockchain itself related to immersion? And are they antithetical, or can they enhance each other?
Yeah, I think there's two sides here. On one end, we've been speaking about how you know these experiential moments, you have to be there IRL, and it kind of contrasts what the ideal of this blockchain, these new technology that's almost becoming, it's all digital, so it's borderless, anyone from anywhere can be part of it, it's a greater distribution of attention, wealth, etc. So that's kind of the appeal of blockchain technology, which greatly contrasts the idea that if you want to experience Superblue, for example, you have to be in Miami. And so I think both can learn from each other and both can benefit from one another. On one end, I think blockchain art and blockchain technology can really benefit from more emotional, experiential art or immersive experiences that allow for that emotional trigger that we were saying earlier. I mean, at the end of the day, minting an NFT is just clicking a button. So how can you make that more exciting? I think there's a big push in that direction now of really thinking about how can we make the idea of minting NFTs or collecting more exciting. But on the other end, as I was saying earlier, I think immersive art and experiential art can really benefit from blockchain technology for fundraising purposes, community building purposes, and also to tap into maybe audiences that cannot physically be there. So, it's difficult to replicate a physical experience in the digital realm, but there are ways of complementing those things. And I think there's a future in which blockchain art can really think about how it can complement a physical experience for someone who cannot physically be there without trying to replicate it per se.
Yeah, and in my own curatorial practice, I'm very interested in these hybrid forms and exactly how you can do that with NFTs. I'm working on one of the 9 curators as part of an NFT biennial that's traveling around 10 countries. And I'm really excited about the physical installation, because we have physical installations, which I'll be drawing from a range of installation practices, including playing with, I have like a 50-foot screen that I get to project NFTs on, and I'm going to make small viewing pods that have kind of sheer curtains so people can have more intimate experiences with art that's blockchain based.
Yeah, I think
it's very exciting.
It's so exciting, and I think literally what's happening right now at Paris Plus is this idea of live minting with Tezos. It's just, it makes it so, the idea of generative art. I mean, generative art has become a huge trend in the blockchain art space, because it has that idea of what we're saying, the collective versus the unique. And the idea of just going there, minting your own NFT and not really knowing what you're going to get. I mean, that whole experience already creates a sense of uniqueness, of personalized immersion. And I think there's a strong idea and a message behind that I hope we're able to develop and as we go.
Absolutely. I am wondering if our wonderful audience has any questions for us. We have about almost 8 minutes left for questions.
So my question is that what do you think about the scarcity or like the physical like properties of NFTs in terms of immersion? Do you think it's something that can add to the experience of immersion or feeling that something is more real in a way?
I'd love to answer that question. Because I'm so excited about the possibilities of physical displays and curation of art that's specifically made for the blockchain. You can use video mapping. I mean, you can really draw on many different formal ways of installing. You're not just limited to, your phone or to a screen, and it can be much more immersive. And I think we're going to see that increasingly happen as artworks are just crossing mediums, and you have artists who are painters who are making NFTs. You have artists who are sculptors making NFTs. I mean, I think the world is just opening up artistically for these types of engagements.
Yeah, I think the idea of scarcity is an interesting one because when we were all stuck at home and the NFT space was creating this, there was a massive hype around NFT art that we saw in 2021. The idea of scarcity became crucial to understanding the value of something. And I think scarcity can take so many forms. And when it comes to experiential immersive art, I think scarcity can come from time-based. So for example, if something is only available for a limited period of time, that already creates a sense of scarcity. It's not just about, like, let's say, the properties of an artwork that make it scarce or not. So I think the idea of scarcity is one that is also very compelling when it comes to experiential art and how you embed blockchain technology into it. But I think it will move beyond just the idea of the properties, as we call them, in the NFT space.
Yeah, and I think the NFT is another brick in what is no longer a dichotomy between real and unreal, between and real world, because what like the phygital or the mixture becomes much more available, much more present, and I think it's not, we won't use the way we're using the concept of real in a while, due also for NFT and blockchain.
I was just going to thank you for the talk so far. It's been really interesting to hear your perspectives on the immersion and also the side of, I suppose, how to physicalize, I suppose, or materialize in a different way NFT experiences. My question is the annoying one, which is where do you think the future of this is going in terms of how physical maybe can these things become?
How physical can
How physical and how immersive, going back to the...
I think the future is phygital. It's more and more mixed between what we say digital elements in the real physical, I mean, and vice versa, which means that also in the virtual will be much more real, perhaps in space without one another, and so the future is much more mixed than we know it today.
Also, I mean, I think if you just go back to virtual reality, for example, to me, what makes a virtual reality artwork very powerful is the installation that goes with it. And when people can onboard and they're in a physical space and then they put on the headset, but that the physical space is reflecting the artwork. I think that's critical. And for my upcoming show at Meet Digital Culture Center, it's going to be social web-based VR. So it means it's accessible by computer or by cell phone, but in the physical institution, there will be an installation on the walls as well as headsets that people wear. And then if you wanted to tokenize an exhibition in Mozilla Hubs, for example, you could totally do that. And you can do some fun things, I think, with this hybrid format where, for example, you project on a wall or on a monitor the social web-based opening of an exhibition. And so you mirror the exhibition in a virtual space as well in a physical space. And the people at the opening in the physical space can talk and interact with people all around in the virtual space. This is very powerful stuff in terms of community building and accessibility. So I think we are in the midst of something that's here to stay. Yes, another question?
Hi, that was a very interesting talk, and it just made me think about sort of AI technology and right now, like DALL-E, how lots of people now are kind of doing for fun. What they're doing for fun is they're creating their own artwork using the DALL-E platform. And so my question is, I mean, Carlotta, earlier you mentioned immersive art can take on many forms, such as, you know, other people who are not necessarily artists participating and taking part in like, creating something. Would you consider this AI art, AI-generated art, a form of experiential and digital art, or is that something that's somewhat of a threat to artists who are, you know, using their skills and sort of expertise to create work?
Yeah, there's been a lot of discourse around the idea of this generative art form being a threat to artists, because you are seeing incredible artworks being created by simply putting a sentence in a machine. And what's interesting there is that what we were saying earlier about the idea of participation and whether participation is at the core of experiential art. And I think that could be seen as a form of experiential art. Again, you're taking something that is collective and making it your own by participating in it. And it's interesting because I think there's going to be, it's an inevitable technology, unfortunately, whether, you know, some artists like it or not in a certain way. And I think there's going to be a future in which we're going to learn how to work with it in the same way that we've started to work with all these new technologies that we've been talking about earlier. And it's about accepting it and understanding how we can best use it. And I think there's so much that can come out of that that is very exciting. So with any innovation, there's always a bit of skepticism, but I think we have to be a bit open-minded about these things and see where they take us.
I just want to thank so much both of you for joining me today in the panel. I think it was very exciting, and I think people learned a lot. And thank you all for your kind listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.